All right, hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. Um, Trying out some experimental stuff here today. Hopefully, um, don't have any catastrophes. But this is an educational channel, and we try to check out great theories of everything, dive deep into them, and suss them out to see what we can use these things for in our own lives. And we look at the tour de forces and the grand unified theories, the all-encompassing theories, the masterpieces and magnum opuses, earth-shattering discoveries, and then hopefully they'll help you out with your paradigm shifting, your awakening to 5D consciousness, and your formation of a holistic worldview. Today is our 209th video that we've done on the Reciprocal Church, where we're trying to take all kinds of different spiritual resources and put them together, compile them using a syncretic process where we kind of put these things into our lives on a daily basis, actually use basically like applied, maybe the word would be metaphysics or spirituality, a lot of pretty esoteric and difficult subjects, but that's kind of what is needed, especially at this point where our Western religions are at the point of doom. They're about to be discredited entirely. The New Testament in particular, a lot of scholars are, and other not even scholars, are coming out with works, books, and arguments that show pretty conclusively, in my mind, that the Romans actually wrote the Gospels, and particularly the Caesars, the court of the Caesars, and several authors have kind of pinned it down to Arius Calpurnius Piso, who was otherwise known as Josephus, and many other aliases that he used as pen names. But he was kind of the whisperer behind Emperors Vespasian and Titus of the Flavian dynasty of Caesars from 69 to 96 AD. The third one of those emperors is Vespasian. His position is kind of unclear. But we just got done reading some stuff from the true authorship of the New Testament by Abelard Rushlin, and I did want to tell you that the last of the 10 characters from the New Testament that also appear in the Quran is Archangel Michael. So that was kind of from leftover from yesterday. But today we're going to start looking at some of the work of Michael Menescot's, his new book. He's got some stuff up on the web, and this is just a more refined version of that, I believe. His book is called Christian Origins, the Flavian Secrecy. What is it called? Got it right here. Christianity's Origins as a Flavian secrecy cult. So Flavian, again, the Flavian dynasty of Caesars, 69 to 96 AD. That was Emperors Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Vespasian and Titus were both generals in the Roman military when they fought against the Jews from 66 to 73 AD. And the Romans put this together for one reason, to basically mellow out the Jews. The Jews have been revolting and insurrecting for really 2 centuries, almost nonstop. And the Romans wanted to create Jewish princes of peace and people who believed in turning the other cheek and rendering unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So they put that propaganda into their wartime propaganda into the Gospels. And they kind of relied on some of the Herods who may have had a lot of Maccabean blood, which is like the ruling family of the Jews from the 2nd and 1st century BC. And they, I believe, also had to go to Rome when this war broke out. They were like the puppet rulers of Palestine. And the Herods, like kind of a whole dynasty of folks. And Piso was married to one of them. And so they helped out also with the, because if you read the New Testament, obviously they had a pretty good knowledge of the New Testament, of the Old Testament, which maybe a Roman might not have. But he had a lot of Jews that were kind of also there that could help him out. They also kind of wanted to create this, they really just wanted to do away with Judaism. They also, but in another sense, they also created this rabbinical Judaism among the Pharisees, where it kind of turned in, they wanted to turn it into a situation where they just, kind of endlessly interpreted scripture, and to kind of get it away from the idea of, like a revolt or, a holy war or something like that, and just be like, we set up a little university here and we constantly talk about interpreting the Old Testament. So those were that was like a two-pronged approach. And it's interesting, both of the leaders of that were involved with this star prophecy. You've probably heard me say Josephus was, according to his autobiography, he was a Roman general, a Jewish general. And he surrendered to Vespasian, and after that happened, he said that he believed that God is now favoring the Romans over the Jews. And so he defected to the Romans, and he also gave Vespasian the star prophecy, which is to say that he said, General Vespasian, I foresee that one day you will become the new emperor. And when Vespasian actually did become the new emperor, he pardoned Josephus and brought him to Rome as the court historian and adopted him into his family. So now he's known as Flavius Josephus. This is a very unlikely story, but that's what he wrote in his autobiography. And then if you look at Yohanan ben Zakkai, who was the founder of the school at Gophna for the Jews that eventually became like rabbinical Judaism, Ben Zakkai also surrendered to apparently Vespasian, but possibly Titus. And in doing so, he also gave Vespasian the star prophecy and said that I foresee that one day you will become emperor. And when he did, Vespasian hooked him up with this land grant where the Jews could build their little university or campus, we'll say, where they, were dedicated to the study of the scriptures. So that's kind of the setting here for bringing in Menescott's book. So this is the introduction from Michael Menescott's, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, Menasgotz. And this book just came out a few months ago. Introduction. Christianity as a topic seems to invite many interpretations. Not only are there endless religious denominations with differing viewpoints of how to interpret Jesus's gospel story, but secular researchers are divided on who wrote that story and why, and to what extent a historical person with attributes like Jesus Christ existed in that location and time. Making it significantly harder to argue in favor of Jesus' story being factual is the fact that this Jesus left no remains, no family, no monuments, or even writings. There is no record of him that was written during his supposed lifetime. If Jesus really resurrected the dead, walked on water, and led a religious movement, there is no surviving record from the time that he did so. And talking of this Essene movement that Jesus is thought to have led, the only three sources claiming first-hand knowledge that this Essene sect existed are all intimately linked to the Roman Emperor Titus, which, as we shall see, is a reason to doubt them. Without tangible evidence that this Essene sect existed, matching Jesus' religious position, Jesus' philosophy, seems to appear quite suddenly out of nowhere from a historical point of view. Okay. Adding to the difficulty, all of the thousands of fragments of Jesus' cross turned out to be fakes from the wrong centuries. We are presented with a ceaseless noise of fakes, from faces on toast to a shroud dating from the wrong century, and a constant succession of tombs being claimed to be that of Jesus. Whilst I wish he would put a footnote there, because I'm not familiar with those sources. Whilst there were multiple leaders called Jesus around that period, there is not a single tangible piece of evidence for Jesus Christ. As for the Gospels setting out Jesus' story, these were at least 3 decades after Jesus supposedly died, and the names attributed to them are the result of later church tradition. 3 of them contain a great deal of near identical text, and therefore cannot be truly independent. This leaves the main evidence backing up the story of Jesus in Gospels and the book of Acts as being the book of Revelation and the Pauline literature, a term which refers to most of the remaining books of the New Testament. That's a problem because the Pauline literature betrays no awareness of what country or even what century Jesus lived in, or indeed his miracles or the vast majority of his life story. Whilst what few details are found in Revelation can reasonably be seen as written with an awareness of the Gospels. Putting all this together, we can summarize the evidence for a first century Judean Jesus Christ as that about 4 decades after Jesus supposedly died, 5 anonymous statements describing Jesus' life story appeared, with 4 of them the synoptic Gospels and Acts, being visible, non-independent of each other, and no way to be sure that the 4th, the book of John, is independent of the other 3. Okay, I have to turn the page. This is utterly challenging in the way that I have this set up, but hopefully it will go at least halfway smoothly. Halfway. I think this is right here. I might be missing a few words here on the. Another example is that Jesus' story evokes Mithraism, a Roman secrecy cult. I think started by Emperor Constantine. Let me see what that actually says. Popular, a Roman secrecy cult popular during the time of Emperor Constantine, which involved secret initiations up through a 7-level hierarchy. Despite how little is known about their secret beliefs, there are remarkable similarities to Christianity, such as the personal salvation by the deity, baptism by water, and the concept of Holy Communion. Jesus' story mirrors Mithraism in how it evokes the deity. How it evokes the concept of God of God being like a sun god. Examples of this are how, like sun gods, Jesus is described as coming in a cloud and the light of the world, and transfigured with his face stated to be shining like the sun. Or how the early Christians depicted Jesus as the spiritual sun. Although introduced by the church later on, even Jesus' birthday, traditionally the 25th of December, precisely mirrors the birthday of the sun god Mithras on that exact same day. As does his rising again from death after the winter solstice, just like other sun gods. The link was Mithraism. The link with Mithraism is much deeper than anyone would expect, and this is something I will come back to later. That's interesting. He didn't really talk about that too much in some of the other stuff I've seen of his. Okay, I'm trying to kind of center this page so I can see it a little bit better. But despite being interesting, the mythicist observation that Jesus' story evokes multiple deities doesn't explain who created Jesus' story, what their objectives were, why they combined those specific myths, or why each of Jesus' parables were written and what their meanings are, which in many cases even Christians admit to being mysteries. Why, for example, does Jesus not only tell the Jews to accept oppression and pay taxes to Rome, but also tells Roman soldiers to accept low pay? Why does he predict a second coming of his that is so terribly important? Why does the New Testament direct believers to see God as a trio, including a Holy Ghost character whose name is not revealed? Okay, this section is called Flavian Origin Hypothesis as a further step forward. One idea that is growing even faster in popularity relates to the Flavian Emperor Vespasian and his sons Titus and Domitian, who succeeded him in gaining the throne of the Roman Empire. The basic idea that the Roman government was responsible for creating Jesus' story is a well-established one and has been popular for decades and known about for centuries. However, to specifically link Jesus' story to the Flavian emperors is a slightly more specific theory, and its greatest proponent is Joseph Atwill, the author of Caesar's Messiah, published in its second edition in 2010. I don't know about the greatest proponent, the most well-known proponent, but Reuchlin beat him out by 25 years. So anyway, but first a little background. The first two of the Flavian emperors were Vespasian and Titus, who often acted and ruled as a father-son duo. Prior to gaining the throne of the empire in 69 AD, they had led 3 legions into Judea and crushed its bid for independence from the Roman Empire. By their own account, they killed just over 1 million Jews, which means that they had slaughtered 0.5% of the entire world's population. Indeed, immediately prior to gaining the throne and ending the near simultaneous civil war in Rome, thereby marking the start of the Flavian Roman era. If it helps illustrate that this was an event that dominated the politics of the era that Jesus' gospel story was written during, these two men had personally directed the killing of a greater proportion of the world's population than were directly killed in the conflicts of World War I and II put together. And the thing about the Roman Civil War, that was, after Nero died, there was a succession battle, and that was the year of the 4 emperors. Galba, Otho, and Vitellius all became emperor for very short periods of time before they were deposed or assassinated, and then eventually Vespasian came in, and that was they killed Vitellius. And according to one author, Vitellius was killed by Arius Piso, who is the guy that Reuchlin and this other author, Piso, Roman Piso, says that, excuse me there, that's kind of what I was worried about there. I'm losing my camera angle here.